Sparking Change with Gigi, a show that aims to make the world a better place by bringing together authentic minds. This show encourages each of us to be the change we wish to see in the world. Get ready to be inspired and join us on this journey to create a brighter future for all.
Welcome everyone to Spark and Change with Gigi. I'm your host, Giovanna Tartarone, and welcome Dr. Kevin Gyurina. Thank you for joining us again. Today we're going to be talking about, because Valentine's Day is coming up, so I thought, why not talk about emotional intelligence and how we can really understand what it is and how we can really help us to just live a better life. Tell us regarding helping people really take control of their emotions so they can live a better life.
Well, there's a couple levels in which I help people with. And really, it's a dance of learning to know yourself in a greater, deeper, profound way. And then when I do one-on-one care here in clinic, there's techniques and protocols for the physical posture, the structure that represents our emotional states. And there's the emotional component through these different techniques that have great results at rewiring the brain to let go of unresolved traumas, unresolved tensions, things that are hidden from our reality. But it brings a tone of tension and stress to the system, and sometimes it builds up kind of like the frog that gets boiled in the water slowly over time, doesn't jump out, versus the quick into the hot water, the frog jumps immediately out. That's a classic science experiment. But it shows us that sometimes we get so used to the uncomfortableness, we get so used to the stress, we don't know we're experiencing it, and it affects our organs, it affects our relationships, it affects our body's immune system, how it can respond and meet our demands of daily life. It connects to every aspect of who we are. We are emotional beings.
So, Dr. Kevin, just a little bit of background about what you do and how'd you get into this work?
Yeah, well, my name is Dr. Kevin Gyurina. I grew up in southern New Jersey, Burlington County area, a town called Tabernacle. And I got into this kind of by happenstance. I had gotten to the college and I was very interested in physical therapy. I had some previous injuries that had me going to PT 3 times a week for a number of months. And I was really fascinated with how they help people. So I started that track in my undergrad program. And in that course of events, I had to do a 6-month externship at any location. I did physical health care, and I got connected to a chiropractor. I never really known anything about chiropractic, though someone that had been influential in my life said, "Hey, you might like this type of care that's out there. Go explore it." And I put my application in. They accepted, and I witnessed people getting life-changing results that I didn't know that were possible. So I got my first checkups. My whole existence changed. I had more clarity of mind. At the time, I was playing college football, and so what was interesting about that is they were tracking my capabilities, week by week, month by month, my strength, my speed, my grades, everything improved, and I was really supremely intrigued in that concept, and how did that happen, and I was really also, in choosing a career path, I was really intrigued by what the story of what chiropractic is when you hear it from a chiropractor's mouth. It's different than what the perception of what the world has for it out there. But it really helped me understand that the brain, the spinal cord, all the nerves in our body are part of the grand communication system, kind of like our computers, kind of like the wiring that goes back and forth.
Right?
Yeah. There's a special kind of wire that sends light. Fiber optic communication cables work just like our brain or nervous system. It sends and receives messages through different forms of energy. And so it's how we perceive our reality.
And, that's a concept that many are not aware of, right? And it's understanding that our reality is what we truly feel at an emotional level that creates our reality, basically. And
it does create our reality, yeah. But sometimes our emotional responses to a situation are not in accordance with reality, though. That's what happens sometimes.
So let's get into how people can really take more ownership of, and technology today is everywhere, right? Technology is getting bigger, and we can't avoid it. It's going to be, even in the space of wellness. It's like the future of wellness is it's what's going on inside of us versus what's going on outside of us. And once we know what's going on inside of us, we can make better decisions. So, give us some information on this new technology that's going to help us really become more intelligent with our emotions.
Well, it's kind of the old meets the new, and lots of old concepts that are in the traditions that are not pharmaceutical, not medically oriented. They're in the Eastern philosophies of healthcare. So think traditional Chinese medicine, think acupuncture. There's a lot of components that go with that style of work. Though here in the West, we have a mirroring of that kind of knowledge and philosophy in chiropractic, and those that are studying different forms of energy healing, excuse me, sound healing. There's ancient practices that translate now into technology because, the last, I say 100 years or so, we've been measuring the effects of nature and the capabilities of humans and their natural expressions and how that can influence the health of another individual. So, for a simple example, singing, the Benedictine monks, the chanting of different Buddhist traditions, they're all part of an effect that has a change on the body that's measurable. We know in different schools of thought in Harvard that prayer, positive focus, essentially the concept of intention, makes a difference. We also know that light affects people and how there's a whole conversation there. And so we have the conversation of light, sound, and then there's the feeling, the energy of things. And we have everyday experiences where we just get a vibe about somebody, or we get a feeling we got to go somewhere, or grab this item before we leave the door. There's common everyday experiences that, as someone trains and hones in on those skill sets, they can cause influence when they're in their own body in a positive way, and they can help others in their endeavors to improve something or resolve something.
Yeah, and it's so fascinating to know, when I got into energy work, to understand that energy at the core, everything is energy, right? So
yes. And so let's dive into that topic, because that's actually part of what I want to talk about. And most of us have been through some form of biology, some form of chemistry. And the most common, easy example to kind of get our head around is water. And if you know chemistry, if you know your symbolism, H is for hydrogen, and there's two molecules of that, and there's a molecule of oxygen. So, two atoms of hydrogen and one atom of oxygen combined to make a molecule of water, H2O. And so, but if you take that one step further, what is holding that hydrogen close to the oxygen? That's the quiz question, right?
Did I pass?
So I didn't hear if you responded or not.
I said energy.
Right, energy. And so if we look at that concept a little closer, we have a positive pole and a negative pole, just like a magnet.
Yeah, or battery, right? Yeah.
Right, and this is inherent in every atom and inherent in every physical object and things that we cannot see. It's inherent in its qualities. It means it comes with it. And so we have this idea, this concept of polarity, meaning a positive pole and a negative pole. It's not a good or a bad thing. It's just it's a quality of attraction. It's called polarity. And when we have a positive force and a negative force, they connect. And there's other features of why this hydrogen chooses this oxygen, and has to do with the shells of or fields of. It's like a Russian nestling doll. If anyone knows what that is, it's like an image that it's within its own same image, that's within its own same image repeatedly. And we have shells of energy floating around this combination of atoms. They're known as electrons, but they're not single particles. They're more of a field of energy, if I could say it that way. zone of energy that's zooming around, that's ready for any possibility. It's kind of a deeper dive. We're getting definitely nano here.
Yes.
Though those forces at the atomic level bind together to make bigger particles called molecules, and they bind together through these forces to make bigger components that form the foundations of a cell. And we all have cells. We have over, like 100 trillion cells that make up our body, and they all are combined in different manners to with these electromagnetic forces, and they have different roles and goals and intentions, of course. So at the core, there's energy, and that's where the word energy can be described in a more particular manner. Though this is where we can say, well, everything's energy, and it's a fun statement. It's an easy statement, though it can be others can dismiss it, or the concepts don't necessarily connect the dots all the way back to those fundamental concepts we learned in school. And it can get woo-woo in someone's mind. So we want to bring it to the science level, show the data, the concepts that are out there, and then we get to experience the effect of that when we start using different forms of technology that influence light, that influence sound, that have vibration associated with it. And so there's a whole world of technologies that are getting better and better and better and better and cheaper, more cost effective. Some companies are doing it better than others, and they're tapping into that.
We essentially, our body.
Say again.
I'm sorry if I was going to say, if I understand correctly, that's why our bodies get affected by sound, light, is because at the subatomic level, there's energy in our cells.
That's right. It's a crazy amount of energy, the amount of voltage that goes on, and what can be exchanged. And if you think of the atomic bomb, for example, they are splitting a single atom, so that we have this crazy amount of potential within the infinite space that is our reality. So this really gets into physics and quantum physics. And so, but we zoom back out to the human being, and we experience these changes of sensation in our body that are matched with emotions, and that's built on top of beliefs and concepts of life.
Yes, I studied the emotion code. I'm sure you heard of it, and Dr. Bradley, what a man, and he points out that again, emotions and beliefs both drive our life.
Right.
And if we can understand them better, understand how to, shift our emotions, because it is a choice. I love the concept analogy of a coin. It's the same coin. So you're the same person. You can either, go heads or tails. Heads positive, tails negative. It's our choice which side we want to be on, right?
There's truth in that. There's definitely truth in that, and yet there's a caveat in there. We do have regulation. We do have choice.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I want to take a step back and talk about the mind itself, because our mind, if you raise your hand if you heard of, we only use 10% of our brain.
That's right.
And so, kind of getting back into, what is that 10% of the brain? What is conscious? What is subconscious?
Yes.
Starting with definitions is really critical here.
Yes. Yes.
Because I want to be mindful that there's parts of our psyche that are hidden from ourselves.
In the subconscious mind.
In the subconscious. So the subconscious is operating the areas of who you are that you never have to think about. In fact,
brushing your teeth, getting dressed.
Well, it's more like if you eat, you're hungry, you eat food, you feel satisfied, and that's it. Meanwhile, there's millions and millions and millions of processes going on automatically in your body to break down that food, assimilate food, extract the goodness from the food, put that food where it belongs, so to speak, the nutrients at its most minute level, atomic levels, and then excrete what's not used, and function and breathe and the heartbeat. And I mean, we have 18 endocrine organs. We have 800 plus muscles. There's constant action going on. The mind, whether you're aware of it or not, is going through 70,000 thoughts a day at a low level. So the idea that we may have 100% awareness and 100% control is something to aspire towards. Though I think that would make us somebody different. And so there's a beauty of that we must, number one, acknowledge that we have conscious means that the amount of information we can focus on and everything else kind of is in the background. The rest of the body is picking it up. So this is where you can be on your phone, maybe you're eating something and someone says something, but you don't really understand it, you don't really hear it.
Let's talk about the subconscious mind, because I also studied biology of belief, Dr. Bruce Lipton.
Bruce Lipton, right? Yeah.
Yes, and he talks about how exactly what you said. We're running on programs. The mind knows exactly what to do when we eat. The mind knows exactly what to do when other functions. We get up in the morning, what we need to do without even thinking about it, right? But also that part of our mind really dictates the actions that we take or how we feel about ourselves. That if we want to see any change in our lives, we have to change the program that might be speaking to us negatively, meaning you're not good enough to receive that. That person doesn't love you, or all these thoughts that, again, I studied thoughts are energy. So if we give the negative thoughts energy, they end up growing and growing, and it becomes, if you repeat it to yourself long enough, it becomes a belief,
right? And
then you're functioning based on belief. Like, just a crazy personal story is that when I was young, my dad used to say, "You better drink your milk. I'm paying for Catholic school. And if you don't drink your milk, when you come home, I hear you didn't drink that milk, I'm going to beat you up." So I used to be in school holding my nose to goggle the little white container of milk. And today I will tell you, I despise milk.
Now there's probably a number of layers.
I will look at it. But I don't want anything to have to do with.
Well, that's a perfect example. And there's we can wax poetic on what may be the most important factor there. However, there's a number of scenarios that cause you to take that action to go beyond something you would choose on your own to satisfy either moving away from some type of painful expectation or at the same time doing something out of being told to do it, out of care, out of love, and being a little child. It's kind of an automatic quality there of your parents are heroes, you kind of just adapt to wherever you are.
Fear, I'm going to be honest with you, right? Or fear. Like I had fear that
so the pain and the pleasure, that's right.
So, and just that scenario alone, I can relate to even a lot of clients I speak to, where there is a connection between what they think today and what happened 7 years. In my understanding, Bruce Lipton says the first 7 years of your life, your subconscious mind is getting programmed.
That's right.
Programmed with, what is your name? So that when people call that name, you're going to respond because you were programmed to respond to that name, or learning a language. The first 7 years of life, right?
That's right. That's right. Well, the brain is in a state that is what's called the delta brainwave state, and it's formatable, meaning it's imprintable, meaning it's a clean slate. The individual comes out of the womb, and then they start to download. They start to observe. It's this pure, constant observation, and then as that 7-year-old mark starts to come about, the brain shifts gears into a different brainwave state, and it begins to make reason. It begins to assign meaning. It begins to connect dots. And so every moment from, in the womb, so from the moment of conception to that 7-year-old period, it's complete observation. And every time there's an observation, there's like a root that's formed, like a plant, but it's in the brain. It's called a synapse, and that forms. And the more something occurs, the more that synapse builds more connections to make a thicker connection. The thicker the connection, the faster the signaling. That means the faster the response. And so now you've had enough experiences of being told, if you don't do this, I'm going to do that. And you don't want that. So you're going to do this. You're going to do this. It's kind of, mob tactics. So, but now later on, here you are, you're an adult. There's a subconscious pattern that anytime someone tells you do this or do that, or this is going to happen, anytime there's a consequence presented to you, it may be a delightful consequence, but subconsciously, automatically, the radar system goes, wait a second. Now it's like a heightening. Now, there's automatic things that go on in that alert stage. Increased blood pressure. My body's subconsciously preparing for battle. I lose the ability to memorize things. I'm not here in battle. I'm not here to memorize lists. I'm here to survive. So there's a list of like 20 things that occur automatically, from bone loss to muscle loss to blood clotting factors increasing, all related to increased stress. And that's related to something that occurred at 7 years old or before. Now, this also relates to things that you watched on TV or heard in the background TV, and music and concepts and beliefs. And so in our today world, our subconscious is communicating to our conscious through symbolism, through emotion, through sensation. It's the only language that it has. And so here we are. We are uncertain why we're upset. We're uncertain why we feel tension. Maybe we know there's reasons. Maybe we know there's things, but we don't know how to meet it. And stress goes up. Or perhaps seemingly other people are navigating the area of life just well. And there's a flow for them, but not for you.
Yeah.
So in that, your subconscious is actually talking to you, where somewhere on that whole line of thought, there's some type of emotion that's stuck. There's some type of belief that's in there. There's some type of unknowing of uncertainty of what to do. A fear, a doubt, a worry that's been unaddressed.
I'm sorry.
I'll just keep on going, but go ahead.
Okay. Is it, for me, when I started studying this, I really understand that the subconscious has a direct link to the heart, right? Where the emotions lie, I believe. And so when we do have a bad experience, negative, it could be very simple. A teacher telling a student, be quiet, put your hand down. And that particular incident, especially when they're young, it will always be recorded. And so therefore, getting older, they feel like they have to be quiet because there's that recording of that incident in their mind. So when people do have, they call it PSTD, if I'm not correct, when they have, some type of emotional impact. In fact, my mentor, Bob Proctor, used to say, there's only 2 ways that you can change something in your mind. One is by emotional impact, and 2 is by, repetition or doing affirmations and really, but now with technology coming into play, there's so many other ways that you can really change the programming.
But it really isn't different. It's honing on the same 2 factors. But there's a 3rd factor now as well, though, that Bob Proctor maybe wasn't aware of, or actually is mostly discovered later than. This is where Dr. Bradley's kind of work comes in, and where he learned from in that arena, what they discovered in the 60s, 70s, and 80s and 90s. It's still being discovered. It's still being the nuance of what. So Dr. Bradley, bring it back to emotion code, which comes back to this concept of emotions in the heart. And actually, I believe it's both ways. Emotions affect the heart, and our heart affects the emotions. It's both ways.
Yes.
And this area of study is called kinesiology.
Yes.
and specifically applied kinesiology.
Yes.
And in that, this is like in the discoveries in the 50s, made discoveries in the 60s occur, which revealed this foundational pattern discovered by Dr. George Goodhart, and now known as applied kinesiology, that there's a muscular change in response to an energetic tone change.
And that's
So
what
the
K.
energetic tone change occurs from an emotion, from a physical contact of a tissue structure, or of a substance. So those
Well,
three
Robert Williams.
realms are being categorized and analyzed, and then part of the challenge in applied kinesiology is, well, how do you get accurate information? How do you confirm that you're getting an accurate test? And so that's really the rub right now for most people, is that either they know how to do that part of the kinesiology testing, where they get accurate information, or they're practicing the style kinesiology that was first discovered, and you're getting 50-50 results. So that's the human technology conversation where it is currently. And now there's a synthetic technology, computers and other instruments that have been created that mimic vibration, that mimic light, that mimic sound, and can measure the human body, just like an MRI, just like a brain scan or nerve conduction test, but different form of it, and how it's measuring atoms and cells and their functions.
Well, have you heard of Psyche, Robert Williams? He used that same, and I got taught under his work as well, to, focus on how we can change the programming, because that's really where your life can change.
That's
and doing the muscle testing, kinesiology, and all that, it's just part of our makeup. Like, unless you're aware of it, but we are able to change the imprints from all those things that happen. And
so there's a term called neuroplasticity.
Yes.
And it means the brain is changeable, it's moldable, it can rewire and dewire, unwire, however that goes. And then so the old story of old dogs can't learn new tricks is false. They can, though, as we mature in chronological age.
Yes.
There's more wires already laid, so it's like heavier construction, so to speak, that needs to be done.
Yes.
And typically at that time of life, we've acquired more toxins and more stress and strain on the system. So the momentum to make that change becomes a little more difficult than when we're, under 20. So
the change is possible.
Change is 100% possible.
Right.
Right. And so
no matter how old you are.
Just to give people something to kind of tune into and look for, there's techniques built on top of techniques that are getting better and better results to help you learn how to use your own fingertips in your own hands to combine the knowledge of how the meridians at the fingertips connect to parts of our subconscious and all of our organs that you can learn to apply in your own time at your own home, no cost, to feel and learn to feel the energy of a situation, and then apply these techniques, and it shifts the energy of it, which allows you essentially to take the veil off of a perception so you can see the world in a new way, find a solution in a new way. It's kind of like, when we're really upset, we can't find what we're looking for. But the moment we calm down, it's like it appears out of nowhere.
Right.
It's a feature of the stress response.
So share us some tips about what can they do to calm themselves down even at home?
Well, I'll start with this. People can go to my website, drkeving.com, drkeving.com, and there's a number of free resources in that. And I haven't yet to do it, but I'll be linking I have launched an app, and in that app there is this called the FAST technique and emotional freedom technique, and a couple of other self-healing protocols to help shift the energy of the body and the mind and emotions. And that's quantum-life.passion.io. And that's an app that has my coaching programs on there, a number of other workshops I've taught, and just content from my TV show, as well as things I've been putting out on social media and YouTube and whatnot, some of those have been taken down over the last 4 or 5 years. Sometimes too much truth can be tough to swallow for the sponsors of the social media companies. So I've been slowly building and moving things into private areas that have some protections, so I can speak more openly about certain topics. So that being said, one of my favorite, one of the most common ways we look at other people. I mean, think about when someone walks into your home. You know, can you tell if they're in a good mood or not? How do you decipher that?
Well, I think first is by energy, like you feel it.
You can feel something, right? Well,
Right.
what's another way in which we can tell someone's kind of state of mind where they are?
Their look.
Their look, right? They have their facial expressions, their body language.
Sure.
Maybe they come in kind of pouty looking, or they look up, or they're whistling. They got a smile. They're moving and grooving.
Right.
We kind of get a sense about it.
Right.
So if we take that and go into more of an investigative kind of detective way, we can look at our own self. It's kind of, you got to have that talk in the mirror. That you got to be honest and open with yourself. You're very raw with yourself, and even in that, there could be tension. So nonetheless, we know when we look at other people, we can listen to the sound of their voice. Like if someone's speaking in front of lots of people and they're nervous, their voice cracks. We can hear them in their tone. Literally, their body mimics the sensations that they're experiencing in that state of mind. So their hand may be fidgety around certain parts of their body, maybe scratching and moving and can't sit still. Those are all expressions of certain kinds of energy, of the emotional qualities going on at the moment. And those qualities are there because maybe they don't, let's make a story up here. Maybe they don't want to make a mistake on their presentation, or maybe someone's important in the audience they want to impress, or they just hate speaking in front of people, and they think, well, where's that come in? Well, it's a question of worth, or maybe what I have to say is invaluable, or will be made fun of for what I say, what I believe, what I put out. There's layers of things that are underneath the emotional feeling. And so underneath that nervousness, maybe sadness or grief. How do we know that? Well, if we're doing it with just human technology, it takes contemplation. And if you are seeing someone who's a certified, practitioner of one of these kinesiology methodologies, they can start to find layers of what that story is about.
Right.
When it comes to technology, there's 10,000 unique vibrations, tones, fluctuations that can be detected from a voice, and approximately 2,000 of those tones are relevant to your emotional needs and your emotional concerns and whatever's behind all that. And one of the technologies that I love, I've used it for 5 years now and beyond. Beyond pleased with it is only one feature of technology, though it identifies the 4 primary tones of emotion that are inlaid in the voice, that are needing harmony, that are needing balance, that need to be processed in some way. And as I compare what I get in testing from clients with their voice pattern, I don't look at the results, and then I do the kinesiology section, and it's called neuro-emotional technique. And we go through this process, and it reveals their pattern of emotions. When I look at the results of the voice scan and what we just worked on, there's always a correlation. There's a high correlation of hidden things, energies that are overexpressed and energies that are suppressed. And it's shown on this technology. Now, the technology doesn't stop there. It produces a customized, personalized tone that brings each of those 4 states into harmony.
Right.
So something that's repressed like value or worth or something of that nature, it helps bring that up by just like if you were listening to a certain song that brings your energy up, brings your emotion up, brings your, your pump up song.
Right.
This one's customized based on your voice. So you don't have to do any thinking or deep contemplation. You can speak in technology for 10 seconds. It produces the tone. You listen to the tone. It helps everything in your system get into that balanced rejuvenation adaptation state.
I love that, because even when I studied kinesiology, I understand that the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere of our brain, when we are not at peace with something, whatever it may be, there's an imbalance. And until we bring that to balance, we're fighting against something, right? It's creating an emotional impact some way, and those emotions are trapped in the body. So the importance of using a technology like this to bring you into balance. Let's talk about the benefits to the body as a whole, to bring that harmony and balance.
Right. Well, you make me want to show you this, what I was referring to earlier, and I like to show to all my clients when the time is right. And it lists the automatic response of what happens to the body when there's unresolved stress. And depending on what kind of emotion, for example, anger and resentment are associated with the liver, where fear or being like a paralyzed will, feeling like you can't, you're frozen in a decision, that affects the bladder and the kidney. And so there's a whole litany of emotions that have been categorized with each organ of the body, from the thyroid, the heart, of course, the lungs, the spleen. Every organ you could mention has a relationship to a certain emotional state. And think of certain emotions vibrate lower, certain vibrate in the middle, and certain vibrate higher. And what I mean by that, it's when it comes to waveform physics, it's the amount of cycles in a given amount of time that will influence, the vibrational pattern. And so, for example, joy feels good.
Yeah.
It's up here. And then of course, shame or guilt down low. And there's many, many in between. One of the most popular, easily accessible resources is a book called Power versus Force. Beautiful. And he's listed many of them. And there's other kinesiology systems that have categorized the states of motion, where they are on these scales. However, when it comes to benefits, helping your nervous system get into balance and getting into that rest, rebuild, rejuvenation state. Okay. So when somebody's able to accomplish that, here's some of the benefits that are automatic. It's inherent when the system gets balanced with its stress versus its ability to adapt to the stress. Heart rate starts to drop, get lower. If we're too much stressed, the blood vessels squeeze. If we relax, the blood vessels open. So when the blood vessels squeeze, when there's too much stress, that creates increased blood pressure. When the vessels relax, decreases blood pressure. The ability to adapt to stress, meaning respond to an event and then come back to relaxation, is the key to longevity. So
versus reacting, you take the time to respond because you're much calmer.
Right. It's not the issue that we're having a response. We're going to have a response. It's how do we navigate that response? How do we choose to respond to that response? Or are we overtaken by automatic behaviors in that response? And the more aware of your own responses, and then this is where all the Bob Proctor work, that we can teach ourselves through repetition, space and time, repetition, teaching yourself new concepts and consciously taking energy and effort to make a change. That absolutely works. It's a road that has length and time with it. Yes. Technology, like I'm talking about, helps enhance that time, helps enhance that process. Yeah. Though the caution there is to become 100% reliant on the technology. We want to maintain our own personal power and choose to use it at times versus being a crutch.
Depending on it, yes.
All right. But at the same time, I was through a time in 2018, I had a big, bad concussion, and this is built on other concussions. So I had to go through some brain rehab and emotion rehab and essentially consciousness rehab. And there was a time when I was unable to self-regulate certain areas of life. And so I went right to this technology. As it helped repair and retrain me, I then regained control, and now there's no need to use it as often. I use it more as a proactive, precautionary, or just help myself stay tip top.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And then the most effectiveness comes with the one-on-one care. And I know Dr. Bradley's work. I know a number of other kinesiology work. The one that has the most evidence right now, the one that's putting out the research that's making the waves, is this protocol that got picked up by Jefferson University. They're teaching it to medical doctors now. They're truly having a non-pharmaceutical approach to mental health care and injury recovery and so many other things. It's called neuro-emotional technique. And I'm certified in it now, 4 or 5 years now. And it got me out of that brain place I had from that TBI. And that
Can you
was
repeat that? Can you repeat that? Because we just got off
the
track.
neuro-emotional technique is what got me to get out of my traumatic brain injury symptoms the most.
Okay.
Right. And then in between,
So this is,
and so as I'm using the technology to help me regulate, the NET helped me rewire my programming from certain traumas, mental and physical, and also rework belief structures. And I've done EFT, I've done some Psych K, I've done some hypnosis. I've done a lot of different methods to, rein it in, so to speak.
well, you've done what I call inner work.
Yes.
When I say to people, this is an inside job, totally an inside job. If we want to change our lives, we have to change it from the inside out.
And that's emotional intelligence. And what I did before our talk is I asked the internet, how do you define emotional intelligence? And everything about it was inner work. And then the other piece that wasn't inner work was how other people respond to your involvement with them. And so communicating with other people and your actions and people's responses to you.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because another part of my learning has been how we affect the world, the collective, where we think that just because we're angry, it's just affecting us, but it's truly not the case at all. This is something that also I haven't learned in books, and I went to school for a very long time myself. I've never understood, or I never came across information that said, yeah, if you're happy and you give love to someone, you're actually putting it out to the world. It's affecting the world. Let's talk about that a little bit, because I know you have a lot of knowledge in this.
This is what I call the intention experiments. And it's been, these different processes and testing have been repeated in different ways. One of the first areas I learned about it was a woman named Lynn McTaggart. She studied intention and groups of people having intentions and measuring outcomes. There's a group called the Institute of Noetic Sciences. They measure intentionality. They measure how like, for example, one of the major studies that they did was around 9/11, and they had already in place globally was these different sensors, and they're called random number generators, and based on when things were kind of like status quo in the world, it would be even 50-50. Though when there was a heightened event where everyone was focused on one thing, there was no more randomness in the studies. And so what that indicates is that when there's more people focusing on something, there's a shift in the reality. So there's in Harvard, the Mind Body Institute of Harvard, they have a number of studies about intention, prayer, positive thinking, and how that affects other people, other systems. In fact, there's a study in science called cymatics, and this is how external sound waves affect a physical system. And they study water droplets, they study sand particles and how they, their patterns, how they lay out. And this is where Professor Emoto, I'm missing his first name. They talked about the attention. They measured two different things: the vocalization and how that affects physical systems. They measured how thought, the energy of thought, and how that plays out into a physical domain, how that affects physical systems. So there's physical hard data evidence that totally supports the idea that what we think, what we say, has an impact on our reality around us. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's why another, I believe, like, we can feel the energy when we step into a room. It's what people are thinking, what people are, they don't even have to say anything. It's this energy field that's around us. That's, again, something that I've learned through my studies, is that this energy field, if we're not careful, if we don't protect it in a way, we can bring in bad energies that will affect us.
Yes. So there is a way to train your senses, just like learning to ride a bike, or learning to write with a pencil or pen, learning any topic, learning any skill set. There's a way to cultivate a more potent expression or experience of that area of life. And when it comes to the human body, the strength and the potency of the biofield is directly correlated. So the energy field around us is directly correlated to our immune system health.
Beautiful. So I'm an advocate now of aligning with body, mind, and spirit, understanding that all three need to be harmoniously, not, a person doing a lot and having do versus being, taking the time for themselves. There has to be a good balance. This is where I feel if there is not a good balance and one is more than the other, that's when we find disharmony in the body.
Yeah.
And it's like the three have to work together in order. And when they do, we know it because we're feeling good. We're inspired to take action. We think about others more than we think about ourselves. And that's how we're in alignment. Does this system that you're talking about also help us to bring those three in alignment?
My quick answer is yes.
You have 10 minutes left. I'm not just kidding.
10 minutes left. Well, yes. And when I'm listening to your statement there, one of the things that came to mind was our cultural influences can shift us beyond what is optimal mind-body expression. Meaning the deadlines due at work, and I'm pulling 80-hour weeks to get it done, and I wonder why I'm sick. I wonder why I'm stressed. Have you done that? Or something similar to that? Absolutely. And so sometimes our cultural pressures, our cultural society expectations aren't congruent with aligning the mind, body, spirit, and soul. So some part of this work is a game of self-love so that you can serve in better ways. Though the art of self-love, what is that? What does that look like? What forces outside of us influence that? Because if you know Bruce Lipton's work, the study of epigenetics, the environmental factors that turn on or turn off our genes. Yes, we get our genes and information of how to respond and adapt and do all that. Some of those responses aren't the healthy responses. And so when there's outside factors from news and media, there's one level. Well, what about weather? And the causes that change the weather? That's the cosmic effect on our local system. And that completely influences where our mind is and what we're focusing on in life circumstances. And it is direct correlations with these factors from our environment in our local planet and in our cosmic environment, our cosmic neighborhood. These influences also stimulate mental patterns, behavior patterns, and in that though, there's great gifts, but there's also things that we haven't seen or known or to work on in our mind or body can come up. It's kind of what's going on right now in the world.
Absolutely. You know, I remember, I think it was Dr. Bruce Lipton who also said, if your mind can make you well, I'm sorry, that was Dr. Joe Dispenza. If your mind is well, can your mind make you sick?
That's right.
Right.
It's
And
the nocebo effect and the placebo effect. We've all heard the placebo effect, but the nocebo effect. That's right. So we can bring ourselves up, or we can bring ourselves down. And so regardless of where people find themselves, step one is awareness, acceptance, right? You are where you are. It is what it is. And what I do in my coaching program is we go through these 8 areas of life. We just start to list, where are we? Step one. Where are we on this map? If you don't know where you're on the map, you can't even know where to go.
Exactly.
Step 2 is the awakening component. We want to essentially identify where we want to be. And then there's that gap in between. And we have all this judgment. We have all this emotion. We have all this belief in between where we are and where we want to be. And learning to address that through different self-healing protocols, different consciousness awakenings, and different, tools and techniques and technologies to then get yourself to consistently, frequently revisit that positive place. The frequency, then your reality will match that frequency of what you frequently put in. That's where energy goes, where focus. How's it go?
Energy goes,
where
attention
focus
goes,
energy flows. Where focus goes, energy flows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful that when you become aware of this information, how truly life transforming it could be for the individual. And then when you change, some people say, oh my God, this world is so messed up. Look at all this stuff that's going on, right? We know we can't change the world, but we know we can change ourselves. And if we change ourselves, then that is directly linked to the world. And if each of us will change from the inside out, we'll begin to have more trust in ourselves, more understanding that, like you just said, the past, let's see how we can take the past and move forward instead of stopping us from doing things that we're meant to do. Some dreams are killed because we don't think we have the potential to make it, or because of the past that has been experienced. So it's using these tools that are here for us to understand that we can, again, the decision is make a decision that you want to change, and no one can make it for us. We have to individually make that commitment for ourselves to say, okay, I need a better way here. And from my own experience, I can say here that when I got experienced to go down this cancer journey, it was like, okay, I'm going to change. There is no way I can continue living the life I'm living, and working so hard and not think about myself.
Right.
That was my wake-up call.
Right.
So until we start loving ourselves, here comes Valentine's Day. Like, for those who are not getting, doesn't have a person in life that gives them flowers, go get flowers for yourself, for goodness sakes.
Right.
Do it for yourself. You don't need someone else to make you feel good. Number one decision is you have to do it for yourself first. Then you can expect others to do it for you.
Right. Well, you attract where you vibe. It's an internal game first.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so I love the work that you do. And any final words where we're taking this to a landing?
Well, I know people out there, you are watching, and you have emotions. I know you do. And they're good. They're informing you of something. And extracting the wisdom of those experiences is where you're going to transform into a positive direction. And so I have an offer. The inner voice. We're talking about that technology about the voice earlier. It's called the Inner Voice.
Yes.
By a company called Solex, and I offer that for $15. You don't have to be an existing patient. It's included if you're already in my one-on-one care. And what you do is you reach out to me. You want to try out the Inner Voice. It's a $15. It takes a few minutes to get your information in and 10 seconds to do the scan. You get an email with the tones to listen to, and those tones are good for about 4 or 5 days, and it helps you shift the story. And if you want to try that and you do it a couple times, and if you like it, well, there's something you can get into where you can have access to that for yourself each day. You could use it for your family members. You can use it for your friends. You have infinite amount of use with it, and that's $149 a month. People can have access to this technology. Most cell phones and most computers have plenty of memory and processing power to have this on your own device, so you can help yourself, help your clients, help your loved ones anytime, anywhere you are. And I have a number of my clients using it, and they're using it all the time. Because their kid from college comes home and something's happening, or the husband comes back from work, something's happening, or they're stressed out. They want to be calm, cool, collected for a presentation that's going on. There's really an infinite amount of uses that this can be beneficial for. And one of my missions is to help people learn about these topics. That's why I'm on the show here today. And number one, the power's in your own hands. But number two, we can use tools like this to help ourselves along in great ways, and we can put a lot of resolution to suffering that doesn't involve medications, doesn't involve buying supplements and herbs. Although those things are really good, there's very positive help that can happen. At the same time, when we focus on the energy and the frequency of it, we create an environment that environment then matches. So if we create harmony around you and in through your senses, it mirrors that inside. This is where we can help ourselves from the outside of putting good in, and our inside reflects that, and then we attract life scenarios that bring about a matching vibe to a much better place.
Beautiful. And the end of that is really living life authentically, enjoying life, and less suffering, like you said. And that's
it. You said it, authentic. This process of the work that you and I are talking about this whole hour is about identifying and revealing your authentic self.
I love it. Beautiful way to end. Well, thank you, Dr. Kevin, for joining me, and thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'm your host, Giovanna Torreon, and this is Sparking Change with Gigi. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you for joining me on Sparking Change with Gigi. I hope that our episode today has ignited a spark within you to create positive change in your own life and in the world around you. To learn more about how you can become a guest or supporter, head over to sparkingchangenow.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing, sharing, and leaving a review. Your feedback is incredibly valuable to me, and it helps me to continue producing content that sparks change in each of us and the world. You can find us on various platforms, including Google Play Store, Apple App Store, YouTube, Facebook, Roku, Android TV, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Thank you again for watching, and I look forward to having you join me again next week on Sparking Change with Gigi.